नमस्कार, आप सभी का आईएएस भारत में स्वागत है। हमारे फ्री क्रैश कोर्स को ज्वाइन करने के लिए गूगल फॉर्म को फिल करें जो कि नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दिया गया है। धन्यवाद।
So in the previous slides, we have gone through the questions related to urbanization and all the aspects of urbanization. What is the process of urbanization? What implications is it having on the society, on the economy, on the socio-cultural fabric of the society? Now moving on to the next important component of the Indian society topic, which is globalization. It is one theme that gets repeated, and almost you'd find questions from this topic almost every year or either every alternate year. You would see that this topic getting reflected in your mains questions. So we would try to understand the whole phenomena of globalization, and we would also try to understand as to how UPSC has been framing questions on the topic of globalization and try to understand the different aspects related to this one. So very simply speaking, globalization, it is a phenomena of increasing interconnectedness between places, between different regions, between different places, and that happens with several mediums. And what are those mediums? It is the movement. It is the movement of people from one place to another place. It is the movement of ideas from one place to another place. And a modern component, it is the movement of capital and the movement of technology from one place to another. So basically, globalization is a phenomena which reduces the physical distance in a sense. So you must have read the term global village when we discuss about globalization. So we will utilize these keywords in understanding the topic very deeply and understand the whole idea of globalization. So we'll take the help again. We are proceeding with the same format, that we'll take the help of different questions which would cover all the relevant aspects of this particular topic. So the first question, discuss about the reasons and challenges of prevalence of obesity among children. List out. Just wait a minute. Okay, so there was a mixture of some different questions here. So we'll start from question number 3, which talks about environmental degradation in India has globalization in its roots. So the first aspect that we are discussing here is with respect to the environmental thing, that environmental degradation has a component of globalization as its root causes. Do you agree with the statements? So the directive words here, they are indicating whether we agree with the statement or whether we do not agree with the statement. So we would frame our answer in a way, one, that we agree with this particular statement. Second would be that we disagree with this particular statement. So let us delve into this one. So first, starting with environmental degradation, you can also start this particular answer by the definition of globalization. So what we used to do when we used to write an answer on globalization, typically you will find one question on globalization in the GS paper 1. So you can start with the basic standard definition of globalization. So I used to start, globalization is the rising interconnectedness and interlinkages in the world with the movement of people, capital and technology, labor, etc. So this used to be a basic definition to start this particular, and how they are linking this with the environmental degradation, because the phenomena of globalization in India, it was there. People were coming to India long before as well. But when we prominently understand the modern component of globalization, it comes with the LPG reforms that are there, which is liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So these three phenomena, they have contributed to the coming up of globalization as its modern component in the contemporary India that we would largely be focusing upon. So post 91 economic reforms, India's integration with global economy as reflected in policies of trade, investment, industrialization has significantly influenced environmental outcomes acknowledged by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So basically this is connecting that how the economic aspect has been integrated after the economic reforms of 1991. Now we will understand whether globalization has a role to play in the environmental degradation. So it discusses that how the globalization contributes to environmental degradation. It talks about industrial expansion and the rise of foreign direct investments, foreign institutional investments coming into India, because the norms of coming of these investments, they have been liberalized after the 1991 reforms. We see coming up of special economic zones. We see that the industrialization component has increased in India. Different industries coming, because with the coming up of the investment, we would see that the industrialization or the industrial activities, they will also increase. So mining, manufacturing, this has bypassed the ecological safeguards. We see that there is a flip side to the development or the growth that we are seeing in India, that there is large scale ecological degradation that goes in the form of the deforestation, in form of land degradation that is happening, in form of pollution, different pollutions, be it soil pollution, water pollution, air pollution, that is happening because of coming up of these industries. And these industries are coming up because of the investment which was caused by the phenomena of globalization. So we can link it here somehow. Second, we have talked about pollution, resource exploitation. We have seen that how with the increasing needs of the population and with rising connection with the other parts of the world, we are seeing that the scramble for the resources, it has increased multiple times. And it is due to this scramble that we are seeing that the exploitation of the natural resources. Let us say we are exporting a particular thing to different parts of the world, and we are also utilizing that particular thing in our country, then we would see that the thing would be extracted more. The natural resources, they would be extracted more. Let me take, you must have heard the term of virtual water. So what is virtual water? Basically, this terms describes the phenomena where the freshwater resources of India, they are getting exported. How they are getting? India is a big exporter of rice. And in the production of rice, we know that for production of 1 kg rice, there is around 3,500 to 4,000 liters of water that is used in production of 1 kg of rice. So we can see that if we are exporting 1 kg of rice, then we are in a way exporting 4,000 liters of water to another country. So this is the linkage that we can basically establish here. Okay. Resource exploitation, we have talked. Urbanization and consumption, we know that the modern form of urbanization, we have talked about the symbolic nature of urbanization as well, but also the consumeristic tendencies that have risen because of the globalization. We are seeing that this increased urbanization is also leading to more and more consumption, and that is directly connected to the exploitation and the usage of natural resources in the country. So I've said this thing earlier as well, that we will, the question asked whether we agree or disagree with the dictum that was provided. So the second set of points that we would be writing here, it will include a set of points that sees globalization as an opportunity, green norm diffusion, technology transfer, that how the international agreements, they have also come into India. We talk about the Stockholm Conference of 1972, which led to some of the significant changes in India's environmental policy. We talk about the 1991 Rio Conference, after which the UNFCCC, UNCCD, these frameworks, they came into India as well. And as a result of coming up of these frameworks into India, we have seen that the legislative landscape of India, particularly with respect to environmental aspect, it has improved significantly. We abide by certain, let us take the example of Paris Agreement. Certain targets were made under the Paris Accord that we have to fulfill. We have to restrict the rise in temperature below 1.542 degrees centigrade by the year 2100. And in doing so, we will have to restrict or rationalize our economic activities in such a manner that we are able to contribute towards the reduction of this temperature. So in a way, when it is contributing towards environmental degradation, with the coming up of these frameworks, it is helping them as well. The technology transfer, we all know that with the coming up of good technology, especially the renewable technology, we are also seeing that the agriculture technologies that we see from Israel, we see that many of the agri-techs or the methods of less water intensive crops that is coming up in form of the drip irrigation, in form of the micro irrigation that is taking place, the technologies related to hydroponics, aquaponics, and a large number of such other related things, it is coming up as a form of the flow of these technologies into the country. Judicial interventions, we are seeing that a large number of judicial pronouncement has been made in the past, which are contributing towards the environmental preservation and conservation. Precautionary principles, implications of globalization driven degradation. So what are the implications of it? So we are seeing a pattern that is repeated in each one of the templates that we are discussing. First, we are discussing the question, then we are analyzing what are the implications of this particular thing. Here we are talking about that how globalization is related to that. Then we will see that how implications, there are social implications of it, economic implications of it, then environmental, and followed by reforms. When we are talking about reforms, there will be policy level reforms, institutional reforms, community centric reforms, where the involvement of all the rungs of the society, be it the people at the base of the pyramid, be it the institutions in the middle of it, and be the state. So the accountability of all the rungs of the society, it has to be established when we are talking about these reforms. Then we can conclude that how globalization is not the sole cause of the problems or the problem of environmental degradation that we are discussing, but it is also giving us that opportunity, it is giving us that sweet spot or some green lights by which we can proceed and in a way contribute towards environmental preservation. Next, it talks about examine the impact of international migration on India's economy and society with special reference to remittances and skilled migration. So this basically talks about the migration component of, or the movement of people and labor component of globalization. So basically globalization, as we have discussed, is the movement of certain things. So we are discussing about the labor and the human migration here. And within that as well, we are discussing about remittances and skill migration. India is the highest recipient of remittances across the world. We know it's established fact that we find Indians in almost all the nook and corners of this planet. And that is in a way contributing towards the phenomena of globalization as well. So what impacts it is having on India's economy and society? So let us understand this. So the best way to start this answer is that how much remittances India receives. International migration refers to cross-border movement, and India is world's largest recipient to the extent of 125 billion in 2023, which is said by World Bank. So we are citing a particular source of World Bank to say that India is the highest recipient of the remittances in the world. What are the economic impacts foreign exchange inflow? We know that when the dollars or other foreign the currencies, when they flow into India, it helps in a sort of enriching our forex reserves. Okay. Second is the household welfare. We are seeing that when people are moving out, they are generating significant incomes into the foreign countries. They are sending these remittances to their homes. It is also contributing towards the upliftment of lives of these people. We are seeing that the consumption patterns have they are seeing a change. We can see that the education of such people, it has improved. We are seeing that significant food habits, lifestyle habits, and other habits are also changing because of the inflow of these remittances. So this can be connected to the household welfare of it. Next thing that we can talk about is that how brain gain and circulation. So one is the phenomena, regional development. So we have seen Kerala's economic transformation. We see that a large number of people have moved from Kerala to the Middle Eastern as medical assistants, as working into different industries that led to economic diversification of people from the skilled workforce from Kerala. And it has led to significant changes back home in the form of higher literacy levels, good living standards. So in a way, it is reducing the regional disparities that might have been created, but due to significant economic avenues in the Gulf countries, the people of Kerala, they are having good repository of money that is helping them improve their lives. Counter-cyclical buffer, remittances inflow remained relatively stable even during crisis. So during the times of crisis, we can see that when these channels, when they are reduced, but with the movement of people between these regions and people staying there, we can see that this was very consistent. There was a consistency that was maintained with respect to remittances. Skilled migration, we have to understand both the sides of it. It's a big debate with respect to migration, and it can be asked as one of the questions, the brain drain and the brain gain. So there are both sides that are related to it. It depends upon what is the nature of flow of the people. If the flow is more skilled people are moving out and they are contributing to the development of other countries, it is understood as the brain drain. So this brain drain is caused because of certain issues, certain systemic and fundamental issues in the education systems. 1, 2, the reward that people get in exchange of what they have studied in their higher educations, the opportunities they get after their education is completed. With many of the doctors, they move to the United States, they move to the Western countries or the European nations because of lack of opportunities back home. So we have to create these opportunities. So it is in this sense that we understand the concept of brain drain, brain gain and circulation. We can create a diaspora where people due to lack of certain opportunities back home, they are moving to different places and they are coming back also to their native places after a point of time. So it acts as a cycle, it acts as a circle where people are moving to the other places as well as they are coming back to their native places. Global Indian diaspora, India's large strengthen India's soft power, investment flows, technology transfer. So these are some of the important components in form of that a significant population in the United States. We have seen that a significant population in the United States, it is shaping the political landscape, it is shaping the economic policies of the nation, it is also shaping the foreign policy of United States with respect to India. We have seen that the White House is celebrating the festival of Diwali. They are lighting lamps. We have seen that in the Westminster House, which is in the Britain as well. So we are seeing the influence of Indian diaspora in form of soft power and transfer of different things. Social impact of it, changing family structures. We know that left behind families, feminization of responsibilities, cultural diffusion will be there, inequality concerns will be there. So what are the issues and criticism with this particular thing? That migrant vulnerabilities, many Indians migrants, especially in Gulf countries, face exploitation. We all know that the kafala system, if you have heard this term, kafala system, KAFALA, kafala system, which basically is about the restrictive and rigid labor laws or some labor reforms which are there, which are very discouraging in nature. So it is one drawback or criticism of migrants, particularly with respect to the Gulf countries that we see. So certain vulnerabilities, they exist in form of exploitation there, in form of unsafe working conditions, in form of lack of protections that are provided to the laborers out there. Second is the regional imbalance in a few states, creating uneven developmental patterns. We see that some of population from some of the states, they are moving out. We are seeing that in form of Kerala, some pockets of Karnataka as well, that these people are moving out, and it is in a way contributing towards regional imbalances. Okay. Dependency syndrome. So when people are moving out, in a way we are escaping the things which otherwise should have been created in India. When we are seeing that people are moving out and getting those economic opportunities, we cannot deny the fact that we have to create similar opportunities in India as well for the people who don't want to move out, but they were forced to move out. So to contain such tendencies, which is described as the phenomena of brain drain, we can work upon this thing. So we'll discuss this thing in the reforms and measures wala part. Policy reforms and measures. Again, skilling and mobility partnerships. Instead of creating direct dependencies, instead of people moving permanently to different places, we can follow the circular pattern that people are going out, people are coming out. So this cycle, this goes on, and it is something that helps with the brain gain, the phenomena of brain gain. Diaspora engagement. We all know that the Pravasi Bharati Divas, it engages lots of diaspora. So we have to adopt policies by which we are able to connect to the diaspora, by which we are connecting with our people in a way. Channelizing remittances, committee insights. Again, so the reforms and measures that have to take place, they have to include all the aspects of the migration that is taking place. It has to look at the social aspect of it, that the people back home connected to them, they are also taken care of. We have to create alternate opportunities by which we are able to provide similar opportunities due to lack of which people are moving out. Conclusion: international migration is both an economic asset and social challenge. Harnessing remittances, migrant welfare. So we'll have to include some positive sides of it, that with meaningful engagement with the foreign nations, by which policies are designed in such a manner that people coming from India, they are not at any disadvantage, they are not discriminated against. The restrictive labor laws in some of the countries, they can also be relieved, and also the rigid structures and the rigid bonds that happen, it can also be reduced. Next question, it talks about present slowdown of globalization, retreat from globalization, and the rise of protectionism. How these trends can aggravate inequality, unemployment, and social polarization. So there has been debate, particularly after the financial crisis that happened in 2008, that the phenomena, the world realized that over-reliance upon the phenomena of globalization, which is creating global dependencies. So if there is one issue that is created in one part of the world, then its impacts would be experienced in almost all parts of the world. So you must have heard that when United States or the US stock exchange, the Wall Street exchange, when it gets cold, the world sneezes. The world sneezes. That when there is, so it is something that indicates that how important or how crucial or intertwined these things have become, in a sense that if there is issue at one place, then that would be manifested and reflected in almost all the nook and corners of the world. So in backdrop of this, we saw that the phenomenon of deglobalization, people reducing their dependencies. We can take the example of Atmanirbhar Bharat, India focusing and over relying upon that we have to create our own base, we have to create our own base of industrialization, of economic opportunities, and reduce the dependencies upon the world. So this trend of this self-dependence and also some aggressive forms of it, we have seen during the COVID-19 as well, that the vaccine nationalism that we saw, the protectionism, the currency war that is currently going on between some of the countries, that's China devaluing its currency, and the trade war that went between India, United States, and several other issues that were connected. So these intertwined nature of these conflicts, it has created many issues, because of which the world started looking for alternatives to it. And it is here that we understand this phenomena of deglobalization. So this slowing down of globalization, how these aggravate inequality, unemployment, and social polarization. Features of retreat from globalization, we have discussed some of them. Trade barriers rising. We see that you can take a prominent example that relates to India as well. Carbon border adjustment mechanism that was adopted by the Western European countries like the Britain and several other countries, which is acting as a non-tariff barrier. So it will include all the trade barriers in form of tariff and non-tariff barriers. We have seen that United States increased the tariffs on India. So these tariff and non-tariff barriers, so it is creating that inequalities. How inequalities? Because of the majority of supply chains that were established earlier, they were directed by some of the nations only. And now we are facing this issue that new players like India and other middle income nations or the middle and low income countries, if they want to do trade with other parts of the world, they are facing disadvantage, they are facing issues because of which they are not able to interact with the other parts of the world. So these barriers, it is creating inequalities. We are left behind somewhere in our share of exports with respect to, and our contribution in the supply chains, our contribution in the global trade, it is reduced. Reshoring and friendshoring, focus on domestic manufacturing. So we have to so nations focusing upon creating their own capacities rather than upon the meaningful or the constructive engagements that earlier used to happen. So this is one aggressive form of thing that is coming up. We can take the examples of PLI scheme. We can take the examples of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We can take the examples of Make in India, Digital India. So all of these initiatives, they were directed towards making India self-reliant in almost all the forms. Okay, decline in multilateralism. We are seeing that the global institutions, they are weakening. Important institutions in form of World Trade Organization, they are weakening because of the Western hangover that is there. Because of Western hangover. Because of the dependencies these institutions have created for their funds, for the supply of the human resources, for the functionaries who were working into these institutions. There was huge dependence upon the Western nations, and as a result of which they're hijacking these institutions and weaponizing these against the small and the middle income countries. Consequences on inequality, widening regional inequalities. We know that we can take the example of export-oriented states facing disruptions. So due to this deglobalization, when earlier these particular places, they were dependent upon certain things. Now when it is decreasing, then the benefits or the gains that these places were earlier having, it is reducing, and that is the troubling part. Digital divide intensifies data. Top 1%, we can represent it that how the top 1% is having 40% of the wealth, and the bottom 50% is barely having 3 to 5% of the wealth. So we can represent it with the help of a diagram as well. Okay. Impacts on unemployment, export slowdown, MSME vulnerabilities, and we can supplement it with the data as well. So this is the impact on unemployment. We'll see that when there would be dependencies that would be reduced, there would be less exports, there will be slowdown in the exports, as a result of which when people were engaged, let us say we were exporting steel to some of the countries like Japan. Now we have stopped exporting those, as a result of which we would see that the people who were getting employed in the steel industry, they have also been impacted. They will not be having employment opportunities. MSMEs, they contribute around 45% to the exports of this nation. So if exports are reduced, then these issues would be faced by MSMEs as well. So how can we channelize this whole thing now? So if we are reducing the exports and improving our own capacities, then we have to keep in mind that the whole thing that earlier was going out, it has to be utilized within the nation in such a way that people who were dependent upon these set of activities, they are not at any disadvantage. They are not losing their jobs because of it. How it is contributing to social polarization, rise of nativism, jobs for local movements. We have seen that in Haryana, we have seen that in Andhra Pradesh, we have seen this in other parts of the nation as well, that people are moving aggressively towards these direction. Identity politics, migration stress, reverse migration. Because of reverse migration, people, they were engaged. I will give you an example here, that a worker, unskilled worker earlier who was working, let us say in Delhi NCR, in other some metro city, working in the construction industry as a, let us say, as an electrician or as a tile worker. But when the person returned to its native place after the reverse migration, then the person is not having any skill or not having a avenue or a place where the person could work upon that particular thing. You would see that in the rural areas, the opportunities that would be available to such people who were having an expertise in a certain or in a particular field only, they are shrinking. These opportunities are shrinking, as a result of which they are largely rendered unemployed. What are the issues and criticism? Protectionism is not balanced by inclusive growth. Global value chains, they exist risks, missing manufacturing opportunities. We have to understand this, that the level of development that have happened, be it in the digital sector or some other aspects of manufacturing, different countries have their relative advantages and disadvantages, and we became part of a system. And when that system is getting withdrawn at this point of time, then we would see that there will be issues that would be created as a result of that when we are exiting out of these value chains, then the benefits that we were having earlier, we would be deprived of such benefits. Reforms, measures and way ahead. Balanced globalization, skill development. What we have to balance the globalization. The aggressive form of globalization was also harmful in some ways. So when we are finding solutions, then deglobalization, which is the another extreme of aggressive globalization, that is also not sustainable. So we'll have to find a way, we'll have to find a middle path where we are balancing this phenomenon of globalization or our dependence on a foreign country with we developing our own capacities. Skill development, social protection, institutional reforms in form of that the multilateral organizations like WTO and some other prominent UN based organizations which were earlier balancing these whole things. the haphazard or the inadequacies that were creeping into the system, they were managed by these bodies. Since they are weakening in one form or the other, we have to bring certain reforms which reflect the realities of current times into these bodies, so that the idea of inclusive growth is not only restricted at the national level but at the global level as well. We'll write a conclusion that how inclusive globalization, the idea of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, try to include these important keywords. When we are writing about globalization, then try to include the idea of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, inclusive globalization, which is there. The next question talks about, is globalization ultimately more about expansion of markets than cultural exchange? Examine the tension between cultural homogenization and resistance. So this question is having two parts. One is, globalization is more about expansion of markets than cultural exchanges, and second, we have to examine the tension between cultural homogenization. So we were discussing this question which is having two parts, that how globalization, it is more about an expansion of markets than the cultural exchanges, and second part is we have to examine the tension between cultural homogenization and resistance. So we'll start with the same way of describing about globalization in the introduction. Then we'll take upon the first dimension which is there. We'll discuss globalization as expansion of markets. How it is an expansion of markets? We'll see MNCs. MNCs in the last several decades, they have emerged as I would say the flag bearers of globalization. It is these MNCs which have brought up several cultures, these corporate cultures that we see in India, the revolution of services sector that we see in India. It is because of these MNCs coming into India, and we are seeing that Indian MNCs are also going out. We have created different dependencies, or we have created opportunities in the software sector in the Silicon Valley of India or the Silicon Valley of the United States. We see that these companies, they are acting as a bridge of exchange of technology, exchange of softwares, exchange of human resources. So market penetration, consumer culture, we have discussed that how the choices of the consumers, it has been shaped in the last 3 to 4 decades. We can back this up with the data. Platform economy. So this platform economy, it is a recent phenomena which has come up after the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is related to information ITC boom that we have seen. So it is, as a result of this, we are seeing that many of the app-based gig economy component that we were discussing, it is rising. Cultural homogenization. How this is leading to cultural homogenization? We are seeing standardized lifestyles, be it our clothing, be it we following the different fashion brands that are followed across the world, be it our food practices that we are following. We have heard the McDonaldization, the pizzaization, the jeansization phenomena, which are generally discussed with respect to globalization. So these standardized lifestyles, language shifts, we are seeing that many of the people in different parts of the world, they are shifting to different languages based upon their work commitments, based upon the opportunities that they are getting in different aspects of their lives. Erosion of local practices. We are seeing that certain local practices, be it the food, the cultural attributes, or the cultural practices, traditions, customs that earlier people used to follow, they are getting reduced because of this phenomenon of globalization. Cultural resistance. How there is cultural resistance that we are seeing? It is in form of globalization. Yeah, this is an important phenomena. You might have heard the globalization phenomena, that the global brands or the global MNCs, they are transforming themselves according to the local societal needs. They are trying to acclimatize and assimilate themselves according to the existing social norms. You must have heard the Mekalu Tiki. You would see that the earlier, when the KFC was there, this was basically, so it had a vegetarian component as well. KFC having a vegetarian component. We also see that the acquiring of the Kolhapuri chappals by the prominent brands like the Prada and all. So we are seeing that these global MNCs, they are trying to assimilate themselves according to the local needs as well, because certain aspects of the societies, they are only getting access to them, only getting access to their consumer. They are in a way enhancing the consumer tendencies of certain social groups by having a close affinity with their existing social practices and norms. Revival movements, promotion of handlooms, Ayush systems. We have seen that in recent years, the Ayush medicine system, Ayurveda, you can take the example of the handicrafts that the tribals, which they generally produce, they getting reflected into the global markets. We are seeing that there are hackathons that are going on. We are seeing that many of the stalls that are there at the global MNCs, at the global events that is happening. Policy push Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, which fosters the cultural diversity. So we all know that how diverse India as a nation, as a society is. So to bring all the components together, the Ministry of Culture is running a prominent program which talks, which is the Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, which is trying to synthesize and synergize all the diversities that are there. Judicial assertion, issues and criticism, cultural commodification, that every tradition, everything is coming to markets. We all see that how markets, they change the colors. On one day they are celebrating the festivals of Navratras, and certain commodities that are associated with this particular festival, we would be seeing them in the market. After 15 days, we would see that another festival have come, and the shops which were earlier selling commodities related to one festival, it has changed completely now. Now they are selling something else. So this shift in the shops, this shift in the markets is an indication that how globalization has penetrated in form of commodification of the traditions, commodification of the customs. Unequal cultural exchanges, dominance of Western narratives. We all know that this phenomena of globalization, the impact that the different parts of the world had on different parts, we see that the Westerners or the Western countries, they are having more impact. We are seeing more MNCs. We are seeing more the food practices of the Western countries coming to the African nations and the Asian culture. So we are seeing that dominance of these nations particularly. Identity conflicts. We see that there are generational divides between traditions and modernity. The modern generations which are coming up, they are feeding on different set of information. They are feeding on different set of lifestyles, which is sometimes found to be contrary to the earlier practices or traditions. Significance or balanced view, not purely market driven. What is the significance of this particular phenomena? This is not market driven. Hybrid identities, we are seeing that the rising of the cosmopolitan identities in the metro cities, and now with the ITC boom, we are seeing that different identities going into the hinterlands of the country as well. What are the reforms and measures that could be included or understood? Cultural preservation policies has to be there. GI tagging, promotion of local arts, inclusive media representation, education. So the coming generations, they have to be sensitized with the cultural heritage that we had. So that can be done with the curricular frameworks, that can be done with having certain fairs, festivals in as part of their extracurricular activities, and encouraging more and more participation of the youngsters into such activities is something that can be done. We'll conclude it with globalization, how it is a market driven yet culturally interactive practice. We also see that there are certain homogenizing tendencies. However, certain phenomena like globalization, it is also promoting some of the traditional artifacts, the traditional handicrafts going to other parts of the world and getting benefited out of it. So we were discussing that how inequalities are created with respect to the phenomenon of globalization. We see that the rising tendency of protectionism, the rising tendency that Western countries and the developing world, it is creating certain barriers. And the most recent phenomena, which was seen in form of the tariff barriers. So the question talks about the impacts of Trump's tariffs on globalization. So because we are seeing that there was tectonic shifts that were seen because of the tariffs that were imposed by the United States, in reaction to which many of the other nations, they started imposing tariffs. So it is in a way promoting that phenomena of deglobalization. Let us understand what impacts it will have upon the phenomena of globalization, which is America First policy, which was part of the MAGA, Make America Great Again campaign that was there. So how it is impacting different aspects of it. What was the nature of it? Protectionist shift was there, that how tariffs were imposed on different sectors, trade war with China escalation, unilateralism undermined the multilateral organizations. When we understand this nature of tariffs and these barriers which are created by Western nations, we see that there is a bias that is seen. We see that these countries are heavily focusing upon their own gains rather than upon the countries which were dependent upon them. We saw that in case that these countries, they are taking this unilateral decisions, they are not considering as to what would be impacted. Let us say there was steel sector or the fisheries sector that was impacted as a result of the Trump's tariffs. Then we would see that there is a whole bunch of people who are dependent upon these. And if unilateral decisions are taken without any check, without any accountability measures which could be fixed, then we would see that the impacts of it would be very grave upon the different communities and different aspects of society. Consequences on globalization, we see the erosion of trade norms. The one thing that is most important between engagements is the bridge of trust. If this trust is something that is that is the cost that is coming out of such measures, then we would see that the interaction between these nations, it would reduce, and it would be of such a nature that each one of them would try to exploit each one's vulnerabilities. So that basic trust has to be maintained. So what is happening? Erosion of free trade norms. We are seeing that supply chains are getting disrupted. We saw the example of China when it restricted the export of critical minerals or the rare earths. We saw that there were shocks that were felt in the financial markets. We also saw that how countries they were impacted as a result of these measures. Trade diversion, countries reoriented trade routes. Vietnam, we are seeing that the China plus one policy that was seen to be working, that to reduce the dependencies, the world would diversify its sources of sourcing materials, its sources of trades, but we saw that certain countries are getting benefited. India as a nation, it has got benefits out of the China plus one policy, but the potential was more. We could have gained more out of it. Rise of regionalism. We are seeing that countries, instead of engaging into global and multilateral nature of big trade agreements, they are signing bilateral treaties. India has signed a large number of bilateral treaties in the recent past. We are seeing that different groups, they are getting formed. Just to give you a context, you can make these diagrams to make your answers more representative as well. I'm just simply making, I'm sorry for this. This is Europe, it's West Asia, going to India, then moving on to the peninsula. We see RCP here. We see Mercosur trade agreement here. We see NAFTA acting here. We saw the European Union here. And African Union, African trade agreement was also there. African free trade agreement was also there. So different countries, different blocks across the world, they are creating such trade agreements wherein their dependencies are reduced from a global scale to a regional scale. And we are seeing this rising regionalism, these tendencies of regionalism across the world. So this is not an healthy form of interaction because of the relative advantages and disadvantages that nations have. Okay. Impacts on India, export opportunities and constraints. We have seen that the barriers in form of tariffs, it will reduce that the Indian goods going to the European markets, Indian goods going to the US markets. Policy response, India is also counteracting to such unilateral policies in form of its own self-reliant policies in that we have discussed, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, to strengthen our own domestic manufacturing sector. We have to work upon and strengthen our own capacities in a way to avoid such things impacting us negatively. Societal implications are also there. When people would be deprived of the employment opportunities, then there will be impact upon the social sector. We will see that it will be reflected in the lifestyle of the people. It will get reflected in what education people are getting, how much healthcare the quality of healthcare into the society as well. What are the issues and criticism of these? Global inequalities. It is perpetualizing those inequalities that used to exist earlier, that the Western or the developed world is having a dominance over the global South. Second, undermining multilateralism. We are seeing that the multilateral organizations like WTO, they are the collateral damage in whole of this phenomena which is going. Retaliatory tariffs, and as a counteracting measures, countries are imposing these tariffs and not coming to some constructive solutions. Rather, we are counteracting the tariffs just to protect the negative, just to protect themselves from the larger negative implications of it. Significance shift to globalization, reduced pace of global economic integration. So this is a good term that you can utilization, globalization instead of globalization, where the dependencies will be there, but they would be to the tune that nations are not getting negatively impacted in a situation where when the dependencies, they are not working up to the mark. Strategic decoupling, US-China economic separation influencing global geopolitics. So the the responsible players who are having a big say, who are having a big share in the global geopolitics or the geoeconomics or the geostrategic matters of the world, these countries have to act in a responsible and an accountable manner by which the small nations or the global south is not getting impacted. Resilient supply chains, you can highlight the supply chain resilience initiative that was launched by India partnering with other countries like Japan, where they focused upon creating resilient supply chains so that the negative impacts of it could be averted. Then we'll write a conclusion that how we have to see opportunities in such tendencies, that we can focus upon building our own capacities rather than overly depending upon the other nations. What are the political and cultural challenges of globalization? So this is highlighting on other part. You are seeing that through these templates we have analyzed the topic from different perspectives. Environmental, I remember; societal, I remember. Now we are discussing the cultural part of it. We have already discussed that how they are shaping the consumer or the lifestyle choices as well. Now we would be discussing the political and cultural challenges. We'll start with globalization's definition. What are the political challenges of globalization? Erosion of sovereignty, domestic policies. So we'll understand it this way, that when we are talking that the global sovereignty, it is decided by multilateral organization. So if these multilateral organization, if they would have been based upon mutual consensus, if there would have been good representation of all the worlds, so there is a big reform that is pending, that these global UN based organizations or some other multilateral organizations which are having a big say in the domestic policies of many of the nations, if they are having a hangover of the Western policies, if they are overly dependent upon the developed world, then the interests and voices of the global south or the developing or less developed nations, it would be compromised. So these decision making which is influenced from these global institutions, it has to be of such nature that it is not negatively impacting it. So one is erosion of sovereignty, that the decision making is impacted as a result of this. Second is rise of protectionism and populism. We'll see that when protectionism, it will increase, so it will also lead to populism. That will be that the domestic governments across the world, they will focus upon providing or sort of giving this this candy in the hands of the people, that in form of populism. They will see that the policies of the nations, it would be designed in a manner that they try to enthuse their domestic people so that they do not rise in any kind of resentment and revolt. Policy constraints will be there, federal tensions across the states affecting cooperative federalism. So there is large scale of issues that would be seen as a result of this in form of the political globalization. Then we'll discuss cultural challenges of globalization. What are the cultural challenges of globalization? First is the cultural homogenization. We have discussed it, how the local identities or the local practices, they are getting dissolved into some uniform practices or some uniform lifestyles. Second is the identity conflict that is seen, that assertion of caste, religion and ethnicity as a reaction to global cultural flows. We see that when the global giants, when they move into certain places and when they try to take over the local identities, there is a counter reaction to it. People try to react and challenge the thing that is there, that is coming up. So this is one counter reaction in form of identity conflicts that people generally face. Consumerism and lifestyle changes, shift from community based to living individualism. So there will be changes with respect to lifestyle. We have all discussed these things in detail. Digital cultural influence, we have talked about platform based or the digital platforms coming, and they are shaping different aspects of life, be it the economic, be it the social or cultural, with the OTT platforms coming in, with the gig economy pushing into the nature of jobs that are created. What are the consequences of it on the Indian society? There will be social fragmentation. We will see that the rise in the identity politics as a counter reaction to the phenomena of globalization. We will see that certain localized tendencies which promote the local identities, they will assert more, they will be more aggressive in nature. As a result of this will not be in counter reaction to the global things that are coming, but also to the national things as well. So it will have an impact of fragmentation within the social and cultural fabric of the society. We'll see inequalities. We'll see, because the phenomena of globalization, it is coming up, and it will interact with the already existing realities of the society. And we know that in many senses the Indian society is unequal, be it in the social strata, be it in the economic realm. There are inequalities that are existing. Legal responses will also be there. Reforms and measures. So what could be the reforms? Cultural preservation practices, inclusive policies, balanced globalization, strengthening federalism. So the pair of solutions, it has to be also of similar nature, where we would be seeing that the solutions are provided as the issues that we have discussed. Then we'll discuss the conclusion as how it is expanding the opportunities of cultural exchange, but also generating concerns over the different things that we have discussed, and how we have to generate a hope here as well, that how we can promote the virtues of globalization here in with the ideas, with the civilizational values or ethos of India in form of the idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam that we generally discuss. Coming on to the next thing, bring out the relevance of Vasudev Kutumbakam in modern globalization. So this is an important question, in the sense that the idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam, it has to be discussed in good detail. So what is the idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam? That the world is one family. It originates from the older traditions of India, that is the Maha Upanishads, and reflect India's civilizational ethos of universal brotherhood. So India have not treated itself as an isolate, as a place which is isolated or different from the other parts of the world. It has taken the whole world as a unit. We as a people are united on this planet by certain things. So it is these ideas that are promoted by the idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam, that all the people that are living on the planet, all the species that are there, we are coexisting. We are functioning as part of a single unit, rather than being divided on different lines. Core features of Vasudev Kutumbakam: universalism. It transcends borders. It does not discuss that there are borders across the world. It takes the whole world as a single unit. Second is the ethical globalization. It emphasizes on cooperation or competition. So since this idea focuses upon universalism, it sort of avoid all the negative tendencies that come when we are seeing the reverse of it. That the competition, the issues that we have discussed, the rising tendencies of protectionism, we are seeing the cultural wars, the tariff wars that is going on. So when we are discussing this idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam, or the whole world being one unit, we see that these competitive tendencies, they are reducing and they are getting replaced by cooperation. Inclusivity will be there. Relevance of modern globalization. What relevance does it have for the modern form of globalization that we are seeing? Global public goods approach. We have discussed this idea that we are seeing that this aggressive nationalism that is rising across the world, in form, we have seen a recent manifestation of it, during the vaccines, that nations were claiming the vaccines to be belonging to particular nations, which was called the vaccine nationalism, that we have seen that things that belong to one place or one part in the times of crisis, it would be shared by whole of the humanity. So the global good approach, it promotes this particular idea. Second is the climate justice and sustainability. We are seeing that the impacts of these environmental issues, be it the climate change, the environmental degradation, or the pollution of the global oceans or the global commons, we are seeing that the impacts of it would be across the world. With the depletion of the ozone layer, it is not that the people or the species residing in the Antarctic region, they would alone be impacted. It will have impacts upon the other parts of the world in the form of changing of the global climatic system, the change in the wind patterns. So this is a whole phenomena. These all things are integrated and intertwined. So we have to see these things in this light only. Climate justice, that the impacts of climate change, it has to be not only on the people who are at a relative disadvantage. Let us say the poor people or poor communities from the African nations. When there will be rise in the global temperatures, there will be heat stress, there will be other issues like the rising sea levels or others, then certain parts of the world or certain parts of the people coming from certain places, they would be more negatively impacted compared to the other parts which are developed, which are having the ways and means by which they can tackle these issues. So these things have to be taken. Digital and developmental cooperation, multilateral revivalism. So there has to be a revival of the multilateral institutions at the global level with adequate representation, with adequate reflection of the realities of the modern world. So the issue with the global institutions is that they were made in a different context. They were made in a different socio-political reality, which has changed after 100 years. So we have to design and rephrase these institutions in a manner that they reflect the current realities of the world. Indian experience, non-alignment movement, humanitarian assistance. We all know that India's humanitarian assistance in its neighborhood, it is well recognized, it is well appreciated, be it in Sri Lanka, be it in Maldives or Bangladesh or any other country, in form of human impacted community, some projects which are running. Okay. Issues and criticism of it. Geopolitical realities. Rising nationalism and protectionism challenges universalism. So this idea of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, it is getting challenged with the rising protectionism due to the geopolitical issues that are seen. We can take the example of West Asia, the Middle Eastern countries. We can take the example of crisis that is going on between Russia and Ukraine. So with these examples, we can explain that how this idea of universalism is getting challenged. The rising inequalities, again, these disparities that are created across the world that we are seeing, it is giving a hit to the idea. Strategic constraints, balancing idealism with national interests. What should be the way forward from here? Reform the multilateralism. If we have to act as a unit, if we have to function as one unit, as one family across the globe, then we will have to devise ways and means by which accountability would be fixed against those who are not falling in that order and against those who are creating those issues. So these institutions, if they are in place, they would counteract to these disruptive tendencies. Inclusive growth models have to be there. Cultural diplomacy can also be there. Ethical use of the technology, because technology is the next reality which will create the divides in the society. It is already creating, and it is an extension of the already existing inequalities that were there in the society. So that has to be taken care of with its ethical usage. offers a timeless normative vision to humanity's globalization. So this idea, it helps humanity to work as a unit, to work as a team, wherein they are able to take care of the global issues that are impacting the very existence of humanity in form of climate change and other issues that we are currently seeing. Coming on to the next question, which talks about explain how the concept of globalized nationalism works as a balanced alternative to unrestrained privatization in a country. So the key theme here is the globalized nationalism. We'll discuss this idea, that what this refers to integrating global economic engagement with protection of national interests, balancing openness with sovereignty. Globalized nationalism refers to integrating global economic engagement with protection of national interests. Basically, this talks about the balance of the openness and sovereignty that has to be established in a country. When we are focusing upon the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are also having bilateral treaties. So it is example of this concept that we are discussing, that India is engaging with BRICS, India is engaging with other parts of the world, be it the European Union, be it the G7 group, or other countries, where it is creating certain dependencies for itself as well as for themselves. However, it is also focusing upon developing its own capacities in form of the Make in India and other forms that we. So what are the features of this globalized nationalism? It is the selective global integration, that we are very strategic with respect to our choices that we make, that how and with whom we would be integrating or interacting. Strategic state intervention, state retains control in critical areas. So this is, as we can say, a selective form of globalization, or basically a selective form of developing its own capacities as well. Welfare oriented, it will be there. And further discussing this whole idea, how it balances unrestrained privatization, prevents market failures. So if there will be unrestrained privatization, that the private sector, it becomes so strong that it goes out of the clutches, it goes out of the hands of the governments, then it can create issues at the national level. It can create issues of national security, it can create social tensions into the society, it can create economic hazards or economic inconsistency in the economic systems. So this has to be balanced. So how can we balance it, and how this idea balances actually it prevents the market failures, it avoids the creating of the monopolies. The Competition Commission of India, which is a body which looks into such matters, that these private bodies, they do not monopolize the whole component in one segment. And every now and then we see that the Competition Commission of India, it penalizes one body, one company or the other, that they are creating some sort of distortions into the economic systems. It protects the vulnerable sections, that those who are at a relative disadvantage, though they are not getting negatively impacted because of it. So it balances that part as well. It ensures the strategic autonomy, that the governments, they are able to realize the power that is with them, and that is not completely sort of out of control and in the hands of the private sector. Indian experience, mixed economy model. We saw that in the past as well, that India followed the mixed economic model. Post LPG reforms with safeguards, we have kept certain sectors under the control of the government. We see that many of the strategic sector, they have a bar to which the companies can invest into them. We see that in some of the sectors, the outsiders, they can only invest up to 49%, they can only invest up to 75%, 74%. So this percentage, in a way, that the government is retaining its own control upon the strategic nature of these sectors. Issues and criticism of it: policy ambiguity. So if the governments are not clear that whether they are promoting the privatization or in a way curbing its sort of wings, then there can be certain ambiguities because of which the private sectors coming into they can also reduce. Chronic capitalism risk: selective state support can favor certain corporations. So this is very true, that given the inequalities that exist in India, that the top 1%, they are having control over 40 to 45% of the wealth of the nation. So if policies are very selective in nature, then we can also see that thing to be reflected in form of the chronic capitalism. What are the reforms and measures that can be taken? Transparent regulations have to be there. The regulatory mechanisms, they have to be very transparent. They have to be communicated openly and without any favoritism, without any kind of nepotism. Decentralized development, inclusive growth, ethical governance. So these points, they are getting repeated, that they cover the whole spectrum of issues that we are trying to discuss. How India's civilizational values contribute to a more inclusive and diverse model of governance. Global governance. So this is one aspect of globalization. We can connect it, that how India's values, they are contributing towards global governance. So this is, however, the larger idea. India's civilizational ethos, rooted in ideas like Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam from Mahapanishads, it emphasize universalism. So it is basically talking that how the Indian values, or how the Indian civilizational values and ethos, they in form of universalism, we promote a culture of assimilation, tolerance. It can help in shaping the global governance frameworks as well. We are seeing the rising intolerance, the conflicts within the multilateral organizations, within the framework of the global governance. We are seeing those tendencies to be rising. What are the core civilizational values with respect to India? Pluralism and diversity, unity and diversity. We all know that these concepts, they are getting Sarvodaya, welfare of the all, ahimsa and peaceful coexistence, dialogue and consensus. So these are the elements which becomes very crucial when we are talking about the global governance frameworks. We are seeing that these global institutions, they are facing issues because of which there is huge diversity that exists at the global level. So if we are not able to accommodate with them, if we are not able to reach to a consensus and discuss with the diverse countries, the diverse groups that are coming, then the issues are created. So it is here that these Indian values, they come into picture. Contribution to, so how it is contributing, we'll discuss this. Reformed multilateralism. So it is a solution to the issues that we were earlier discussing, that how there are issues with respect to the multilateralism, the global public goods approach, the rising, it is a solution to the rising protectionism, or which is sort of the rising nationalism that was seen across the globe. Wait a minute. Yes. Global South cooperation, the South-South cooperation. India is championing that cause. We have seen that during the G20 as well, that how African Union, it was integrated into the G20. It was a measure that reflected that how India is concerned with for the global South as well. Human-centric globalization will be there. The theme of G20, One Earth, One Family. And Indian experience, we have already discussed that the idea of NAM, humanitarian leadership, vaccine Maitri. So you can take note of these important terms or policies or the initiatives that were taken by the Indian government, and they are acting and playing at the global level as well. Disaster relief diplomacy, the policy of Sagar that we talk about, security and growth for all in the region. The Indian Naval Symposium initiative that was there, so which was basically in the Indo-Pacific region. They are trying to cooperate with the nations that are in the Indian Ocean specifically. So you can take help of these examples. Some issues and criticism related to it, that how these values they are getting challenged and why they are not able to create or generate that impact that they should have done by now. So one and the most important is the implementation gap that was seen, that there were certain constraints that these values faced when it comes to, because of one, the diversity in the geopolitics, the different interests that the nations had. So United Nations is having certain interest in the conflicts with the Iran. However, India had certain interest by engaging with Iran. So it is creating that issue, which has to be taken into account. Second is the global inequalities. We all know that the inequalities in the power structures, in the economic structures, that the world is seeing. The African nations, they are at a disadvantage. The global north, it is having that relative advantage. So these inequalities, they are not able to create that platform upon which these values, they could be appreciated very well. Domestic challenges are also there, in a way that how domestic policies, how domestic interest, they champion over the global cause that has to be there. So what could be the way ahead from here? So we'll discuss the reforms that could be there. Strengthen multilateral institutions, promoting cultural diplomacy, inclusive domestic development. So we have been repeatedly discussing these things, that for the global cooperation, the global institutions, they have to be strengthened. One, two, the diplomacy or the dialogue between these countries, it also have to be promoted to a great extent. Inclusive development, when we are talking about the global development, when the developed countries, they are they are championing this cause of development or the sustainable development, the climate justice that we are talking about, it has to be very inclusive in nature. It has to include all the different blocks, regional blocks that are there. They have to be integrated and synthesized in a manner that no one is left behind within this. We can conclude with that how these different values, they can help us create an inclusive world or a global order which is based upon certain rules, which is based upon certain norms, certain good practices, and bring out the good side of it. Next is globalization, which once promised prosperity has now led to job displacement and anxiety. Analyze how the current retreat from globalization is impacting aspirations, career choices, and psychological security of Indian youth. So basically this talks about the impact of globalization or the slowing globalization or the tendencies of deglobalization, how it is having a dent upon the aspirations of the Indian youth, how it is impacting the Indian youth particularly, especially with respect to certain things. It is creating anxiety. We all know that the anxiety that is created in the Indian job markets after certain events that happen. We can start our answer again with the standard definition of globalization, that what is the phenomena of globalization that we have already discussed. You can write the interconnectedness and interlinkages that goes on to changing aspirations of youth, shift from global to local opportunities. So how it is changing the aspirations of youth, this phenomena of slowing down or the deglobalization, that decline in overseas jobs. We are seeing that the barriers are that created in form of visa restrictions, H1B1 visa that are. So the number of these visas are getting restricted. People are getting deported to the country. So there is a shift in the opportunities, in the number of opportunities that the Indian youth was getting. Preferences for stability. So the private sector, which let us say 5-10 years back, which has boomed like anything after the services sector came into India. So because of this phenomenon deglobalization, we are seeing that the youth is migrating and focusing more towards the government examinations. We are seeing that The government competitive examinations or the government jobs, they are providing a promise. They are appearing as a promise, as promise of stability with respect to their career prospects, with respect to their livelihood prospects. So this is one shift. Impact on the career choices. What impact this phenomena had? Decline in the export oriented sectors. We have discussed that how the key sectors, be it the IT sectors or the steel sector or some other key sectors, which are getting impacted as a result of deglobalization. Rise of gig and informal work. We are seeing that the platform based economy, they are getting impacted because of, so there is a rise, but there is a component of higher degree of informalization that is attached with these gig economy. We we can see that with the help of the data of periodic. So you can cite these PLFS data sets, which can sort of give some credence to the points that you are. Skill mismatch is another issue that is highlighted, that people are not able to meet the industrial standards. We are seeing that there was a report by UNESCO. Yes, it was a report by UNESCO only, which says that at the current level of skill set that the Indian youth is having, let us suppose the Indian youth at this level that we are talking about, the skill set that they are having, around 50% of them would be rendered unemployed by 2030. 50% rendered unemployed by 2030 because of the mismatch, because of the demand that is there in the industry and something that they bring on board. Psychological and security anxiety, job security, mental health concerns, identity crisis, identity. So we've discussed these, that how these shrinking opportunities and concentration in certain sectors, it is creating the mental health issues, it is creating anxiety among the youth. Okay, what reforms and way ahead could be here from here? That skill ecosystem reform. So this is one thing that India needs to address at this point of time, because we are seeing that there is a data set which says that around 1.5 million graduates, engineering graduates, they enter into the Indian market every year. So if this big number of people are entering into the market, and if they are not provided with the right skill set that matches the industrial standards or the industrial levels, then how are we going to employ these people? How are we going to give economic prospects or opportunities to these people? Mental health supports has to be there. Inclusive growth, global integration, balance FTS to create stable job avenues. So when we are talking about youth, then it has to be connected to the idea of demographic dividend as well. When we are in this venture of generating that demographic dividend and the benefits out of it, we cannot disconnect or isolate it from the phenomena of deglobalization as well. We have to empower our youth in such a manner that they are not rendered directionless. They are having a direction, they are working upon a skill ecosystem, generating soft skills, generating different skills, particularly based upon the AI and the coming trends into the job market, so that they can sustain these changes that are coming up. Conclusion, again, that how there has to be an overarching framework, there has to be a shift in the way we respond to these changes. It has to be there, that can be written. Discuss how the twin processes of globalization and deglobalization are reshaping inequalities and contributing to regionalism. So we'll see that how both of these phenomena, they are creating the phenomena of regionalism. We'll discuss it with both the respects. One, globalization, and second is deglobalization. With both, we can write the definition of both of them very brief. We can write both of these. What are the features of these? Selective integration, protectionist push, uneven global value chain, reshaping inequalities, interregional inequalities. Southern western states gain from exports, Bimaru states like. So when we are talking about this globalization coming into picture, we see that certain states which are having an advantage over, let us say, industrialization. So these states would gain more from the industrialization component or the manufacturing component in form of the exports, and those states which were lagging behind in this phenomenon of industrialization, they would be lagged behind, and certain inequalities would be generated here as well. Second is urban-rural divide. We will see that digital inequalities will be seen, how this will contribute to regionalism. So this is an important aspect, that how it is going to contribute. First is economic disparities, political assertion. ठीक है. So we'll understand it this way. We have already discussed that how regional disparities can be created because of the phenomena of the globalization and both deglobalization. And we have understood this thing in detail, that promotion and the slowdown of exports, it creates those regional imbalances and disparities. So when we are saying that, then there will, these economic disparities, they will translate into local voices getting into some aggressive political assertions. We would see that people would demand different, let us say, statehoods. They would demand different identities for their regional people. Okay. Second is subnationalism, son of the soil movement. We have already discussed that how the employment landscape, it is getting shaped in India in recent years. How the local movements which are sort of encouraging the more participation of local youth, the youth coming from that particular state compared to other states, it is getting traction more and more. Fiscal federalism tensions, we'll see that how the southern states which already are perceiving a relative disadvantage, it can further be amplified. What are the issues and criticism of it? Fragmented development. We all know that if the house is divided, if the people are not coming with a single ideal, if they are not able to integrate all these things, then the developmental thing that we are particularly talking about, it will be diverse and it will be fragmented. Migration conflicts will be there. We have discussed this thing earlier as well, that how the locals, they started having that feeling of hatred against the people coming from other regions. Weak inclusive policies will be there. What reforms and measures could be seen from here? That when we are talking the phenomena of globalization and deglobalization with respect to regionalism, then we have to focus upon the regional development. It has to be of inclusive nature. We have to take care of all the socio-cultural realities of different regions, the economic statures at which these different regions they operate. We have to design our policies in such a manner. The idea of multi-level planning that we discussed, it has to be promoted, which would reflect the realities of that particular region, and policies would be more targeted and they would cater to the localized demands of those particular regions. Cooperative federalism, again, these things, they're getting repeated, that how when we are dealing with the issue of regionalism, how these cooperation, these dialogues, they have to be promoted both within the states, with the state and the union, so that no region feels left behind it. And it is these perceptions of being left behind that create these tendencies of son of the soil movement that we see, or some other movements that come into picture. The globalization has to be inclusive in nature. We can take an example of a very innovative initiative that was launched, One District, One Product, which focused upon creating exports from each one of the districts based upon the strengths that they had. Different districts, they had different strengths. Someone having in handicraft, someone having in some agricultural product, someone having in state in production of different products or commodities. So this was utilized by the central government, that these districts, would act as the export hub for these particular commodities. So this was a noble idea which discussed that how the districts, which forms a key component of different regions, they would act in itself the export hubs, and it can be utilized to promote the idea of regional development in that sense. And also we can discuss some of the important government schemes, which was the aspirational districts program that was there, aspirational blocks program that was launched to reduce these tendencies of rising regionalism. Sorry. Moving on to the next part. How globalization of beauty standards and consumer culture are reshaping self-worth and mental health among young women. So we have discussed how that the women they are getting impacted because of globalization. Now one more nuanced or one more specific component of it is being discussed, the beauty component of it. So you will see that the first time India got its first Miss Universe, it was around 1991 or 92. So there's an interesting story behind it, that it was around 1991 or 92 that India got its first Miss Universe. So it was the exact same time when India opened its market to the world. So the global beauty products, they wanted a particular person from India who would propagate or who would sort of act that phase of advertisements for these beauty MNCs, that they would be penetrating into the market. So this was the selling of this whole idea of beauty to the Indian women as well. It is at this time that these global MNCs, they pushed this idea into the minds of the Indian women, that look, people coming from your backgrounds, they can also be the most beautiful people of the universe. So this is how these products, they started they getting penetrated. So when these beauty pageants, they advertised for these MNCs, then people start realizing that by the consumption of certain products, be it certain soaps, be it certain beauty creams, they would be able to make themselves more beautiful. So we are discussing this particular question in this backdrop only. We'll start with globalization definition. What are the features with respect to globalized beauty and consumer culture, that how it has homogenized the beauty ideals, that with the consumption of certain products, you would be able to make yourself more beautiful. Consumerism and body image, that it has been all created. This is a construct of the globalization only. Digital amplification of it. Platforms, they are amplifying this idea that how someone can be beautiful and what is it that takes to make you beautiful. So it is through these ideas that these are pushing into these particular domains. What impact is it having on the self-worth of women? Internalized inferiority. So this complex of inferiority, when they see certain people to be relatively, when this idea was sold, this so-called idea of beauty, when they compare themselves with other, they find that they are not enough for that. And it is this that create the inferiority complex within the young women. Validation through appearances, likes and online approvals. So this is a tendency which has come because of the ICT revolution and those ideas of beauty coming into picture. So people, when they try to get validation from these social media and different platforms. Mental health consequences are there. Anxiety and depression. We are seeing that people are doubting their self-esteem. They are defining their self-value and self-worth based upon how much approval or how much appreciation that they get on different platforms and the people in their surrounding. So it is leading to suicides as well among the women as well. So the NCRB data also of 2021, it highlights this particular issue. Body dysmorphia, growing but under-recognized issue in India. Cyberbullying, we see that people sort of when they post something on the social media platform, certain sections they start commenting in a derogatory manner, and that impacts the mental health of the individuals as well. What are the issues and criticism of it? Intersectional inequality. We have already discussed the idea of intersectionality in detail, that how rural and low income women faces exclusion yet aspire to same ideals. We see that first exclusion, that the gendered exclusion that they face as women. Second, it is compounded with the different identities that are associated, and that comes into picture, that rural women coming from marginalized sections, they are not getting that equal space that they should get, as a result of which it is creating those inequalities. Commercial exploitation, that how these industries they are profiting from it. Cultural erosion, the indigenous notions of beauty, it is getting sidelined. That we have already discussed this idea, that how the idea of beauty is getting homogenized, that it is some companies sitting in the developed countries which are deciding that how what is the idea of being beautiful is, what are the benchmarks upon which people have to evaluate themselves whether they are beautiful or not. So it is getting sidelined. Reforms and measures ahead. First has to be regulatory, that the advertisements, ethical advertisement has to be promoted. Ethical advertisements have to be promoted, and the people, those who are doing those advertisements, they have to be responsible enough in that regard. Mental health support has to be there. Body positivity campaigns, Dark is Beautiful campaign that was launched. So it is again sort of giving that confidence to people that beauty in itself is not a fixed idea. This is so fluid an idea that if there are different individuals, then how can there be a fixed standard of how one can be beautiful or how one cannot be? So if there are different people with different anatomies, then there will be there should not be any fixed idea of beauty. Education and media literacy has to be there. So this is there. Conclusion, that how this is connected with the consumer culture, and it has to be expanded as an opportunities of self-expression, of empowerment of women, and we can connect it that how women, we can connect it with the idea of gender inequalities or the associated sustainable development goals. Now coming on to the third topic for today, which talks about social empowerment. So this is again an important topic that talks about the different social sections that exist in India. We all know that India is a diverse society. India is a mosaic of different cultures. It's a mosaic of different social customs, different social traditions, different caste, communities, ethnic groups, and whatnot. So there is huge diversity that exists at the societal level in India. We can have different parameters of how we can describe these social segregations. SC groups, STs, OBCs, religious groups, ethnic groups. So there are different and numerous verticals upon which we can categorize these particular thing. But when we are talking about such diversity, then there are some issues that are faced by certain sections, and that can be related to different regions that we would be dwelling in detail. There can be political reasons to it, some political inequalities that are created, economic reasons behind it, that how the control over the resources of the society by certain groups, that they have they have controlled most of the resources, and certain sections they were left behind as a result of that. So we will discuss that with the help of certain examples. There are certain datas that are also there with respect to different social groups that you can refer into the fact sheet. So this do not miss series of society, it starts as the first chapter. It has a fact sheet which provides you different datas as to what is the ST population in India, that is around 8%, SC population which is around, I guess, 16% or something. So it gives you those basic facts which can be utilized in enhancing or enriching your answers. So we'll move into this section with the help of questions. So the first question is, as per the ASER report, the school education system in India is undergoing various challenges. List out the challenges faced by existing school education system and what measures could be taken to improve it. So this talks about the challenges in the education system of India, particularly at the school level, and this has been highlighted by the report of ASER. So you can start with ASER report, which is published by Pratham, and the key challenges that are highlighted. Okay, so we'll discuss these key challenges. Let me. Learning outcome crisis. First is the foundational skills deficit. The ASER report that is published annually by Pratham, it gives us those depressing data. It gives us those data by which they are saying that people in the 5th standard, 7th standard, they are not able to read books, basic books, the foundational literacy that has to be there. We all know that someone who is above the age of 7 and who is able to read or write or understand something that is written, one is considered as a literate. So this is a very liberalized idea of literacy in India. So particularly at the school level, the primary level or the secondary level, we see that students are lacking those basic foundations that has to be there, like basic foundation in form of comprehending the write-up, in form of reading the write-up, in solving basic numeracy problems. So students are facing issue, and that can be corroborated with the issues that exist, the systemic and the foundational issues that exist into the educational system. Rote learning bias. So the Indian education system, which is based on the grading system, based on the marking system, so it in a way, when it evaluates a student based upon what one writes into an examination, it promotes that rote learning, that in the race of getting the marks, students, they prefer rote learning rather than critical thinking. It is not generally promoted in a large part of school system that we are talking about. So you have to understand this thing here, that when we are talking about the education system issues, then we will discuss it from the multiple dimension. First is with respect to the students. Second that we would be talking about is with respect to the teachers. What are the teachers and institutional constraints? Teacher shortages is one, multigrade teaching. So the issues that are faced by teachers, the government teachers especially, that one, the overburdening of the teachers because of the administrative work that is delegated to them. And when they are overindulged into these administrative works, they are not able to dedicatedly focus upon the learning outcomes of the students. Quality gaps are there because of inadequate in-service training. What happens is that in India, once you clear a particular examination, you are never checked again. So, and the training system that exists, it is also at the very beginning of the of the induction of these teachers. So what ideally has to be there, that there is continuous process of training that goes along with the career, with the approach of the career cycle of the teachers that has to be there. Quality gaps, social and digital inequalities. So the inequalities that were existing in the society, they are also getting translated at other level of the school system as well, in form of first generation learners, digital divide that we see, that how the students coming from the relatively marginalized sections of the society, they are not able to get access to the basic digital equipments, the basic digital tools, which have become almost a necessity in the current times. If they are left behind, then the benefits that would be generated out of these digital technologies, it is these people who will not benefit out of it. So the inequalities that were existing earlier, it would be extended further as well. Governance and implementation issues, focus on input and over outcomes, regional disparities that we see. What are the implications for Indian society? First is that we are going through that sweet spot that that countries generally go. One fact, India is among one of the youngest countries with the mean or the average age around 28, I guess 28 or 29, and most of the developing countries, their average age is somewhere around 40, which is 35 plus. So we have a relatively young population that is there. One. Two, we are going through that sweet spot of demographic dividend where around 60 to 65% of country's population is in the working age group of 15 to 59. So this much of young population, if we are not reaping the dividends of it, what is demographic dividend? Demographic dividend is basic demographic, something related to population and dividends. So if population in the economic system, if we are not able to reap the benefits out of their skill sets, out of their capacities, if we are not able to generate that economics out of it, then we are somewhere lagging upon this particular aspect. So if we are lagging in the very foundation of the students, then how are we going to reap that benefits? Many of the reports, UNFPA, United Nations Fund for Population, it says that India is having only a window of around 20 to hardly 30 years within which this demographic dividend shall pass. So we'll have to focus upon the foundational learning of the students at this stage. There are certain government initiatives that you can highlight here. Nipun Bharat mission is there. Competency-based learning. We have to include AI into the curriculums. The Chinese education system, it has integrated and made it compulsory to learn AI into their school frameworks and the curriculums. Teacher empowerment has to be there. Continuous professional development, Kothari Commission has highlighted. So you can take note of these commissions and committees which you can utilize in your answers. Local teacher recruitment, assessment and governance, regular learning assessments. So the assessment systems that exist currently in India, which is largely based on the marking system, the grading system, it can go some changes because the societies are changing. The capacities of the students, we have moved from the IQ to the EQ. So these things have to be focused upon when we are talking about the learning outcomes of the students. Next is equity focus interventions, that the inequalities, the social inequalities, they do not get reflected into the school system. So we'll have to take care of that. And how can we do that? By creating that level playing field. How can we create that? Either investing into these key social sectors of education, or bringing in the private sectors or the private players for that matter. Judicial support. Conclusion is that indicate that improving enrollment alone is not sufficient without ensuring the foundational learning and quality education. So we have to move now from the quantitative aspect to the qualitative aspect of Indian education system. We have to focus, if we are to focus upon the social empowerment of the society, if we are to reap the benefits or generate the benefits of the human population or the human resources that we are currently having, we'll have to focus upon the foundational aspects of it. Second question, it talks about, in recent times, the Gen Z protests are increasing around the world. List out the reasons for these protests and its unique characteristics. We all know that how the Gen Z protests, they have led to certain political changes as well in different parts of the world. We have seen that in case of Nepal, we have seen that in case of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and several other parts of the world, that these protests are coming into picture. And the recent one, the CJP protest that was seen in India, which was associated with the Cockroach Janata Party, this is also coming as a protest in resistance or as a resentment to the existing structures on social media. So this is a digital movement kind of a thing, which is asserting, which is sort of bringing in forefront the Gen Z population which is there. So generally these are people who are born after 1997 or 98, these somewhere around 2001 or 2, that these are described as the Gen Zs. Increasing around the world, list out the reasons for these protests and its unique characteristics. So 1997 to 2012, I would like to correct myself here. Reasons for these protests: economic insecurities, that the youth, they are unemployed, the different data sets. First, the level of unemployment. Second, the quality of employment that they are getting, it is not up to the mark. Next is, apart from the economic insecurity, just give me a moment, social justice and identity issues that are there. So all the issues that we have discussed with respect to the economic aspect of the society, the social inequalities that are existing in the society, so all these things, they are getting reflected into these protests. So the intersectionality that we have discussed in the earlier sections, that how different identities, they are getting reflected through these protests. Democratic and institutional concerns. Student and youth groups have raised concerns regarding campus autonomy. So the democratic participation, we have seen that certain things happening at different levels of the life of the youth. We see that in the campuses, we see at the workplaces, certain issues are coming into picture. So it is representation of these issues. Climate and environmental anxiety, people are becoming more sensitive towards it. Digital awareness and global influence. This is one important point that needs to be put in here, that as a result of the digital revolution, people are able to access more and more information about different issues, and they are independently able to form their own opinion on the issues. It is not that they are directed with certain ideas and they would be blindly following it, but they are getting a multidimensional perspectives on these issues, and they are forming their own perspectives upon these issues. What are the unique characteristics? First and foremost is the digital mobilization based on the different social media platforms. Leaderless and networked. These are not typically having some leaders who would be leading the movement. There would be generally people who are networking with each other. They are talking, they are making different groups and discussing these ideas. Intersectional agendas. Earlier, what used to happen, that movements, they used to be around certain issues, but within these Gen Z protests, we are seeing that there is no, it can start from one issue, but they are having different issues that are coming into picture as the movement evolves and as it proceeds further. Issue specific and short burst. So this is also one characteristics, that sometimes these social media trends that we see, these are also a form of the protest that we are talking about, that certain hashtag movements, they will run on Twitter or Instagram, and after if adequate attention has been gained and some measures were taken to solve that particular issue, these movements, they generally subside. Significance, what is the significance of it? It is increasing the political literacy. It is increasing that awareness among the youth. So it is in a way deepening the democracy, the democratic practices, the democratic way of functioning of a society. It is getting improved as a result of these. Policy sensitivity, that people would be more sensitive as to what policies they need and what is the extent to which state can participate and intervene into the nature of policies that they generally do. Risks, misinformation. So there would be certain risks that are associated with these: misinformation, polarization, protest fatigue, that there is information overload, and if these movements, they get directionless, if the non-state actors, they tend to participate into these movements, then they can provoke a whole section of the youngsters into doing things which otherwise is not backed by legal standards. So this is one issue. Second is polarization, that this misinformation, this can polarize the youngsters, this can brainwash certain sections of the society. Next is the protest fatigue. Since these movements, they are based upon the impulses, sometimes it is seen that they are not long lasting, and they tend to subside after a moment. What are the reforms that can be there? Economic reforms. So when we are talking about these protests, then we have discussed that there is a range of issues, there is a whole spectrum of issues that have come as a result of which these things are happening. So the reforms will also be on the similar lines. List out the social and legal challenges faced by LGBTQ community and suggest some measures for promoting their rights. So we are talking about social empowerment. So we would be discussing different issues that are faced by different social sections. Though there will be certain issues that are common to all the vulnerable sections of the society. First is the social inequality that is there. Second is the economic inequality that has been due to the inadequate distribution of the resources in the society. When we are talking about the LGBTQ community particularly, we have to highlight the social and legal challenges and measures to promote their right. So we can give a data as well. You can give a data. So the census of India, it provides certain data, as I'm forgetting it, that what is the current population of the LGBTQ in the country. What are the social challenges faced by LGBTQ community? First is stigma and discrimination. We all know that the society, it has not reached and has not come out of its rigidities, or if I could use the term, that hangover from the past, because of which they are not able to assimilate the evolving identities of the gender. The spectrum with a plus, it indicates that this spectrum can further evolve. So the society is not prepared at this stage to accept these ideas, to accept these evolving nature in completely into their fixed structures which were formed earlier, which leads to them getting discriminated at workplaces, them not finding rooms and apartments to stay. They are not getting employment opportunities. So it is a kind of social ostracism, that they are neglected, or they are thrown out of the society in one way or the other. So first is this social challenge. Second is the violence and harassment. We have seen that how at different places people, they even resort to violent acts. They resort to harassments of the people belonging to LGBTQ community due to perceptional issues. So this is an issue because of perception, and also because of lack of information and awareness, sensitization towards diversity. So it is the decreasing tolerance in decreasing tolerance in the society. So if one is not aware about let us say for something that is unique in itself, or something that is different from that particular individual, if they are not having a particular information about that particular thing, then they would be having a different set of feeling for that set of group or that set of people. And it is due to these perceptional differences that we are seeing these violences, these harassments of the people that is coming up. Next is health and mental well-being. They are also due to lack of recognition, due to lack of paperwork, these basic things that they are not covered in the welfare schemes. They are excluded out of certain health programs, certain educations programs that are benefits that are there. So they are, as a result of which, there are certain mental health issues that are also there. We see the issue that the literacy levels among the LGBTQ communities, though we are not having recent data on these things, but it has been, these groups has been at a relative disadvantage compared to other sections of the society when it comes to attaining or getting access to affordable education as well. Economic marginalization is there. How this would be that these people will not be given equal opportunities for getting employment, for doing businesses, or for exploring other economic opportunities or avenues. What are the legal challenges? Incomplete legal recognition. Same-sex marriage and civil unions not recognized. So same-sex marriages in the landmark decision of the Supreme Court, they were not recognized. So there are certain legal challenges that also exist, because of which implementation gap. So this is one of the biggest reasons that despite certain developments after the Navtej Singh Johar judgment that was there, and laws like Transgender Persons Protection of Act 2019, due to the lack of implementation, and where this lack of implementation is stemming from, it is coming from the fact that people do not have that thing that we were discussing, that they do not have the basic awareness that is needed. Family and inheritance right. There is no defined legal framework which says that the people belonging to LGBTQs or the transgenders, what are their inheritance rights that they would be getting. We can highlight some of the important judicial decisions that were there. The Nalsa, Navtej Singh Johar, Smile scheme that is there. Measures to promote LGBTQ rights, legal reforms. It has to start from the legal reforms. It has to start from the society. It has to start with the sensitization of the people with the uniqueness that they need to accept at this point of time. And this can be done through different measures. Inclusion into the curricula, media campaigns, police training. So the issue exists at the societal level. So it has to be tackled at the societal level. And for the coming generation, what we can start, that we can start including and teaching these things at the school level only, so that they are prepared for these particular things. Economic inclusion has to be there. So this whole spectrum of inclusion, which will be economic inclusion, which will include health, other welfare benefits, education, all sorts of it. So it will start with the basic fact of acceptance of these particular section of the society. So when we are talking about SDG 5 of gender equality, SDG 10, or if we are talking as a society, if we are talking ourselves as a pluralistic society, we have to keep these things in mind, that certain sections of the society, they are not discriminated against because of the gender choices that they have. Increasing trend of old age homes shows the vulnerable conditions of dependency population. List out the challenges faced by the senior citizens and suggest some measures for their welfare. So this is another section, another marginalized or vulnerable section of Indian society, which is the elderly population. I think it is 10% only. So currently this is 10% of the population, which is bound to increase in the coming times, because if we see India's population pyramid, this looks like this currently, in the bell form that we generally describe it, this, that youth population is there, but most of the population is in the mid-age group. So when these people would be transitioning to the old age, the number would be very huge. Such is the case with China. China has started experiencing this thing. When India would be reaching this 10%, so this 10%, they have not mentioned it here. So this population figure will increase by 2050 and further. So the discussion of this particular section, it becomes very important at this stage. So we'll see it through the challenges, the basic challenges that are faced by the senior citizens. Erosion of the family support. So we have started with the basic data set, that what is the senior citizens in the country and what is the current population composition. You can also make the diagram that I made. Okay. Challenges faced by senior citizens, erosion of family support. There are two aspects to this. We would be discussing this as well, that there is a huge identity crisis that happens in the old age. When the old age people, they start feeling that exclusion, when they start feeling that they are not made part of the important decisions of the family, they are left out of the important preparations or the important. So it starts with that basic perception, or with that basic understanding that they have been excluded. And second is also the erosion of the family support. We see that there are certain factors that are responsible because behind it. One is the migration. Migration is a big cause that the elderly people, they reside. There's a data set that around 80% of the elderly population, they reside in the rural areas. So we can see that there is ruralization of the elderly population. So the youngsters are moving to the cities, they are left behind, and they are not given that adequate care or support that is needed in that particular age. Social isolation and abuse is there. 5 minutes. So that social isolation and abuse that they face, next is the economic challenges that they face. Economic income insecurity, because of their increasing age that they generally face, that they are left after 60 plus. Most of them, the current economic structures, they do not allow the working of these people in many of the cases. So as a result of which, when this economic or these income avenues, they shrinks, what happens that their decisional autonomy or their decisional power into the family, they also gets reduced. Rising healthcare costs. We all know that that the health problems or the chronic illness, it increases at the age increases, and also due to rise in inflation and the rising cost of the medical expenditures, which can be seen that around 50% out of the pocket expenditure is done by the personal income of the people only. Health and psychological challenges. So we would analyze the challenges from all the perspectives. The inadequate geriatric care that we have talked about, mental health issues that are there, administrative challenges, weak enforcement of the rights. They are not aware sometimes they are not able to access, they cannot reach out to the government offices or other places where they could get access to these basic rights. So what are the measures for senior citizen welfare? You have to remember a term here. It is silver economy. So basically, this talks about the economics of geriatrics, the set of economic activities which is related to the old age or the elderly people. So you can always include the promotion of silver economy as one of the suggestions when we are suggesting reforms for the elderly. Second is healthcare, social support, active aging, and also to design the job structures or the job profiles in such a manner that if they are not able to contribute with their physical labor, they can be brought up into some counseling roles that they can acquire. They can given a new set of soft skill sets by which they are able to contribute into the economic activities and generate income for themselves as well. So these are the things that we can discuss. Then conclusion, that old age homes signals structural stress in the Indian support system. So Indian society has worked in a different manner. So the support system, it is very, I would say, of the nature that earlier the children's get, then that is translated that the elderly get. So it is getting certain, it is feeling that changes because of all the phenomena that we have discussed into our in our discussion of society. So this was today's discussion. So if you want to discuss in detail or see in detail the templates of the questions that we have discussed, then you can definitely refer to the Do Not Miss series that is there. So you can directly go and get access to these books, and you can revise and make your own templates. So we have seen that how when we are seeing a particular topic, globalization or social empowerment, from let us say 10-15 questions, so it provides us the 10 to 15 different perspectives by which we can cover these topics. So this can enhance your understanding. This will help you provide different points. So you can take help of these series. So this is all for today. We'll meet you in the next session. Thank you so much.